Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Near Memo with Mike Blumenthal and me, Greg Sterling. And the Near Memo is generously supported by gatherup.com. So thank you to them. Today, on episode 220, count them, we will be talking about a number of things connected with LSAs. They just made some policy changes. And we've been doing some user research, which has a big focus on LSAs, among other things. And we'll be talking about all of that. And we will also be talking about some recent survey findings that show the percentage of small businesses claiming their Google business profiles is sub 50%. And what does that mean? And why is that the case? For an extended period of time for many years. Why is that? Why are they not claiming and optimizing their business profiles when everybody knows that's an important thing to do? So, Mike, let's get into the LSA block portion of the program.
Sure.
What's
So
happening?
Google just announced a new verified badge for all LSA participants that's going to replace the Google Guarantee, the Google Screened, and the License Verified by Google badges and consolidate into a single badge. They're going to get rid of the Google Guarantee opportunity where a client can get up to
Which was like a
$2,000 back.
mediation thing. Yeah. And a money.
Right. It's more like an insurance thing.
Yeah. It was an insurance policy. Right.
Insurance policy. They're going to get rid of that. And this is a consolidation of LSAs, which to me implies cost savings, particularly as it comes on the heels of 3 or 4 other consolidations. For example, starting late last year, they started moving reviews over to the GVP reviews and getting rid of their own review system, which never worked very well and had very poor spam control, where they also started requiring they were having problems with fake listings and illegal activity. So they started requiring verification of location. And then they automated the appeal process on bad leads where business could go in and indicate that this lead wasn't a real lead. And they applied AI to that. So now you get a credit that Google automatically determines as to how many leads you have or bad. So all of these, when taken together over the arc of the last year, imply to me that they are maximizing profit in LSAs while still retaining the things that make the program appealing to searchers.
Well, the verified badge makes sense because it's a simplification for the consumer. I mean, their motive may be cost savings, but that's a rational move for the consumer. And most
It
people
is.
still don't know what that means. I mean, they see it and it has some credibility, but they don't have any insight. It's not really. I mean, you can click through and get some description of what's involved, but it's not really transparent to them what it means.
It doesn't appear that as far as I can tell so far, it does not appear that the new badge changes any of the process involved in getting authorized and where they double check your location, double check your bona fides, double check your employees in the case of in-home visits. Doesn't seem like any of that has changed. So it's a simplification. I agree with you that it's better for the consumer. The reviews are better for the consumer too,
Yep,
because
they're more legit
more
theoretically.
legit. I mean, it was so easy to spam LSA reviews that, there was gazillion fake ones. And
And
so
my understanding is the verification is or whatever verification screened guarantee was outsourced to third parties, the actual
yes, well,
process.
some of it,
Yeah.
although, uh, some of it is internal now, particularly for lawyers and stuff. I don't think they use Pinkerton for lawyers. They just require maybe I'm not even sure, additional verification documents and you have to have a legitimate location associated with it, that sort of stuff. But, you know, it com- in the research we're doing, so there's this history, and I think consolidation to increase profitability, make it more obvious, probably expand categories as well, I think this is likely the setting for expanding categories.
Right.
And, you know,
I saw whatever I think it was 2023 or whenever the last time they talked about the number of categories. I mean, one could count them, I suppose, but just in the newsletter, I just indicated that it was like more than 70 categories. But I would imagine they're gonna max it out as
I
much as
would
they
think
can.
with these changes, because it simplifies it to some extent and becomes more applicable. I deal with a law firm and they're paying, $170 per lead for employment law leads. Roughly 20% of them are bad leads, but they can't dispute them because Google's already taken the really bad ones out. It's an AI-driven process. So it's from Google's point of view, I would assume a fairly profitable per interaction cost. And, Google has done these things where, in an LSA, you can now text or message like 4 lawyers all at once or 3 all at
Well,
once, which
right. It's their RFP thing, yeah.
has got to be driving their income up. So I see it as a strong income play by them. But the other thing we're seeing in our research is that when LSAs are present for a number of reasons, traditional ads and the PAC utilization drops way off. Some of that, we saw this last year when we did our research, and we're seeing it again in our current research. Some of that has to do with the fact that LSAs include the information that people really want.
Right. Reviews,
Pictures, ratings,
pictures,
reviews,
years
years
in
in
business.
business, and they look better than the PAC results. There's also, though, a certain amount of what I would call dark patterns involved in them, where the LSA only has the word sponsored once. It's at the top, and then there's 3 results below it that don't clearly indicate that they're sponsored. And a lot of times in the PAC, you'll see the word sponsored. They'll put a
At the,
sponsored
at
ad
the
at the top of the PAC, and people will falsely assume that the whole PAC is sponsored if they're not that familiar with Google. So there's that sort of thing. So there's a differential of why don't they make the improved information available in the PAC? They used to have lawyer photos. Photos are really important to people. They want to see who they're, particularly in a life impacting legal decision. They want to look in the eyes of the person they're dealing with. And then also when you click through, now currently you're seeing Google screened with lawyers, you'll see Google verified, and it carries some weight with consumers. They don't quite know what it means, but
it's like all these certifications that exist that, JD Power and all these so-and-so seal of approval. Nobody has any idea what's behind that, but they seem like this is some imprimatur of third-party testing, or, there's some credibility that comes with these seals. You look at it in the grocery store, you look at a product and it's got six badges across it, fair trade and this and that and the other. And people take these as proxies for whatever quality, ethical behavior, and so on and so forth.
And so when, to me, these are patterns that are intentionally meant to drive traffic to LSAs away from other results. We typically don't see AIOs and LSAs in the same result. So I think, though, that they are stealing a fair bit of traffic. Many of the users go from LSA to website, but some stick just in the GBP-like interface. The other deceptive practice I'm seeing is sometimes the user will go to the PAC, the 3-pack, the free pack, click on more businesses, and be brought to an LSA finder with LSA results instead of the
that
free
was
results.
very disorienting to me. I saw that as well, and it was really disorienting. Like, what is going on here? And for regular folks, there's not going to be any distinction. They're not going to see the difference.
Right. And so when you add all that up, you realize that Google, 1, understands what users want, and 2, they're directing them intentionally. They're obfuscating it in some way with the sponsored stuff. And 3, they're directing users towards their paid advertisement without correct or appropriate, even legal notification of the fact they're sponsored. But even people who proclaim to not like sponsored ads often
Respond to
will
them.
respond to them. And I had one user in the research that say, this is the most amazing result. It has everything I'm looking for. Even though I don't like ads, this ad is everything I'm looking for with the visuals and the
Right.
emojis.
So this is the one case, Google's always making this statement in their earnings calls and elsewhere that ads are valuable content. People in commercial queries, people like ads, they're helpful to people. This is the one context in which that is kind of true,
Right,
because
but
there
it's
is
arbitrary difference. I mean, they're making one significantly more useful than the free one.
Yeah, so there's you said a lot of stuff, and I agree that Google has, I don't want to say quietly, people always like to say, so-and-so is quietly doing this. This is quietly happening. But Google has been blurring the
Or in case of
distinction.
Trump, they say unusual instead of
Yes,
unprecedented or
yes,
illegal.
yes.
Yes. Sorry for the
No,
diversion.
that's fine. That's fine. Um, Google has been blurring the distinction between organic and paid for a while. Now, according to the FTC rules, you're supposed to clearly delineate or distinguish ads from non-advertising content. I mean, years and years ago, there was this whole paid inclusion phenomenon, which was not clearly called out, and people got spanked for that. And so the ads became segregated from the organic results. And what Google is doing is mixing them together. I mean, this is slightly different than what you're talking about, but on these pages that we're looking at, there's just a lot of clutter. There's a lot of stuff, and it's not clear always. I mean, we can see this because you know, we're paid professionals. Don't try this at home. But regular people who are just looking for a business or looking to answer a question or whatever, find somebody to fix their thing, are not making these kind of fine distinctions between, oh, this is an ad and here's the organic result and here's this pack and here's this pack. And so they are just looking for something that seems to be relevant and fulfill their need. And with LSAs in particular, they do a very good job of doing that. They are always number one. LSAs never appear in other than the number. When they are present, they are never anything other than the number one position. If you're on a desktop computer, you might see two, but in a mobile context, you almost always see three. And then there's the button that says more businesses, and people click that and they go through and they get lost in this LSA finder or this environment that looks almost identical to Google Business Profiles. And so, when people see those ads, which some people correctly recognize as ads and many people do not, or if they do recognize them as ads, there's enough information there to seemingly answer their question. It's like a black hole of attention. Occasionally people will scroll or go into the pack or look for a particular lawyer in organic results lawyer, I said, but could be anything in any of these LSA categories. But it's
And the other thing they're doing simultaneously with this, so there's LSA, there's regular ads, there maybe is an ad at the top of the pack, and then there might be one organic, but then they start sticking in, people also ask, big blocks, and
right.
then maybe another two organics, and then people also search for.
Searched, right?
Right. I mean, you have to scroll so many. I mean, I think you once had one that you looked at where a person was looking for somebody and didn't find them till page 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah,
right?
no, this was a particular business that they knew of. It could have been a brand search, but they were looking at a category. It was a category search, but they were looking for a particular business that they had previously known. And there's where is it? Scrolling, all the way deep in page 2 until they found it. It's I mean, I have survey data which says that Google is easier for people to use and the quality of search results is higher than it's been in the past, which is astonishing to me because I just think the opposite. And that's a separate conversation. But these pages are so full of crap and clutter. It's just unbelievable. And Google, as you say, with the dark patterns, Google has scientifically engineered these pages to maximize clicks on where they think people should click. And that is mostly LSAs in the context of this discussion. Google used to try and get small businesses to do AdWords. Google Business Profile was originally a data was a data magnet, but it then became an entry point for AdWords in Google's mind, right? We are going to get people to sign on to Google Business Profile, and then we'll convert them to advertisers. And they never successfully did that, at the kind of scale they want. But with LSAs, they've kind of solved that problem because LSAs become become a necessity depending on
Right.
the vertical.
As you were talking, I was looking back at the
As you were
notifications.
talking, you weren't paying attention to what I was saying.
I paid 100% attention
All right,
90%
go
of the
ahead.
time.
Go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
the other 10%, I was looking at this paragraph where they say in this notification about the new verification badge, you will consistently see this new badge on your local service ads profile and dynamically on other Google services where we predict it can help consumer decision making. That's quite a sentence when you parse that. In other words, your Google verified status will start showing up in more surfaces, in more contexts, and you will be paying for it, one assumes.
Well, you think that's gonna turn into an LSA lead? In when if they
Yeah,
start show I'm sure you're right. That's interesting. So
yes, I do think that.
at one point they had, I think that they discontinued it, but obviously, but they had made Google verification or Google screened or Google guaranteed available to non-advertisers for a fee. There
No, I
was
see this more like a ambulance chasing. You get in an accident, Google Maps knows, and they say, "Oh, there's a PI lawyer nearby."
right. Well, that's then it means they're going to be pushing LSAs into other places on the SERP.
That's what it sounds like. I don't know what it means. We'll see. Or the maps, right? Or there's an LSA Google verified on the map, wherever. So we'll see what
Right.
that means.
Right.
I just, so that was a valuable sort of digression, as it were.
Yeah, of course.
Always.
Always. One interesting sort of aside that we can talk about on another occasion is the in this particular vertical that we're exploring, what I'm seeing is lots and lots of very, very high ratings, star ratings, combined with generally high review counts. And this is something people respond to. They look at star ratings and they look at review counts. And in some of these cases, at least, there's no way that these are not there. There's no review fraud.
Yeah, I
And
think legal is one of the areas where review fraud is rampant. Although I find it interesting that users come up with other ways of choosing when they all have.
well, when everybody is a five-star business, you have to do that because that ceases to be a differentiator. But my concern is that beyond the fraud itself or the seeming fraud, it pushes everybody. So if you don't compete at the very highest tier, right, the top 1% kind of thing, like if you're not 4.8, 4.9, 5, you just don't get visibility because you're not going to be one of those top 3 uh listings in the LSA pack. And it forces people to consider these dubious ways to get more reviews and higher scores because you're not going to be visible. If you're an ethical business and you've got a 4.5 or 4.4 rating and you're competing against 4.8, 4.9, 5.0 and, hundreds and hundreds if not thousands of reviews, you're just not going to be visible and people aren't going to choose you. And there's something just very profoundly unfair about that. I mean, life is unfair, the economy is unfair, but it's a problem, I think, because people don't have any consciousness of. In my video watching, I saw one guy who went onto a directory site that showed a bunch of really high scoring profiles, and he said, "How can they all be a 10?" And he clicked away. This was the only person that questioned the legitimacy of these reviews. Yet people are seeing 1,000 5-star reviews or 800 5-star reviews. That
Or
is just
2,000 or 2,500.
yeah, it's impossible, right? And people are not questioning it, even though there's a vague sense out. If look at the survey data, there's a vague sense that there's some some illegitimate reviews running around. People don't look at those 5-star reviews and say, that's just not possible. I don't believe that. That's not credible. How can that be? They say, wow, this is great. 2,000 5-star reviews. They're really good. I'm going to choose them.
Yeah,
And it validates the behavior.
I agree. It's race to the bottom, and I think it's the death knell for reviews at some
At
point.
some point, but yet we're not seeing people say, this is not possible. I'm not going to trust these things. I mean, BrightLocal did a survey. Remember, on their consumer survey, they have some data that shows people will look at a couple of different sites as a way to sort of verify that the Google reviews presumably are accurate. And there was some indication, trend wise, that there was some declining level of trust in reviews. We're not seeing it in our research. We're not
No.
seeing it in our research. Okay, all right. That was exhilarating yet exhausting. So the final item today that I think is interesting to talk about, again, sort of BrightLocal here. They have recently did a survey of small businesses, and 2 data points that jumped out. Only 35% had claimed their Google business profiles, and only 40% had websites. Now, I've independently done small business surveys, and the number that I came up with, or not came up with, but the number that came out of that was 43% had claimed their Google business profiles, which I looked at the time and thought, wow, that's really low. But that involved businesses of up to 499 people. And I believe that this BrightLocal survey was a much smaller headcount. Most small businesses are at the lower end of the headcount spectrum. So these two,
BrightLocal was 778 small business owners.
yeah, and mine was a thousand. 1,000 small businesses from 1 to 499 employees. What this indicates, what we can say confidently, is that fewer than 50% of small businesses have claimed their Google business profiles. And you said that this sort of is consistent with historical trends. And
And I think it's why Google moved away from GBP as
yes,
top of
as
funnel lead
yes,
gen for them.
yes, and they've gone straight to ads by forcing people. They're effectively forcing people to buy ads because they so prominently showcase those LSAs,
At
and
least in high advertising categories. Like in restaurants, we
not
don't
across the
see
board.
ads, right?
Not
But in
across the
lawyers,
board.
we see ads, right? A lot of.
Yeah, in many categories, and to the extent that it becomes they span out or fan out across all these. They're in 70. Maybe they go to 200. It compels people who really want leads from Google to buy those leads from,
Yes, I
you know,
agree.
and it's kind of another step in the sort of degradation of organic search, which has been going on for a very long time.
So did you have more to say about the BrightLocal survey?
No, I don't. I was feeling just momentary depression there, stunned into silence by the depressing state of things. No, I don't have more to say about the BrightLocal survey. I mean, I think every
Greg, remember,
business,
I'm always here to cheer you up.
yes,
Without hope, there
every
can be no revolution.
well, what businesses have done is they've abandoned Google for Facebook and Instagram. The vast majority of small businesses have some presence on social media, and it's less likely that they would do that on Google. But Google Business Profile is critical. I mean, ChatGPT is invoking it, and Google AI mode, and AI mode uses a lot of Google Business Profile data. And so if you're not there, you're really reducing your chances
I mean, I
being
think what we're
exposed.
seeing in our research, particularly with lawyers, is that offline advertising is important
Yes.
as as
Brand awareness is very important.
brand awareness has a huge role to play. And you have to basically have a multi-pronged attack that you're wherever your clients are. And you have to, whether that's YouTube or Google, we talked about this to some extent with Darren, how YouTube was valuable for him. And I think that small businesses, the problem is they become myopic. They don't see the opportunities or understand or necessarily map the opportunities to their client base. Most of them are not tracking where their clients are seeing them, and thus they end up focusing on what feels
Well,
comfortable
to
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 them as opposed to what makes sense.
to the Bright Local survey, they found that many of these businesses, these small businesses, undervalued local SEO. They saw it as a
Yeah.
sort of middle of the stack
Or
contributor
towards middle to lower part
to
of
the
the stack.
yes.
Yeah.
So they didn't see local SEO as particularly valuable versus SEO. They saw
Other,
SEO as a more valuable thing, but 60% of them don't have websites. So there's a lot of confusion, I think, among these small businesses about what is working, where they should be putting their time and energy, and the idea that they're not investing in a Google Business Profile is just a reflection of that misunderstanding.
the other tragedy I would note in this survey results, perceived impact of marketing channels, is one step lower than local SEO is email marketing,
Right, which is another misperception.
which is free compared to paid search, all the other paid social media, digital PR. Those are all very expensive channels. Broadcast advertising, all very expensive.
Yes,
And
but
email
email is not.
is not expensive,
But
but
you
it
have to
does
build your
require
you have to build your
internal
list.
processes to build your
Yes,
list.
you have
But
to build your
from my
list.
point of view, instead of having to advertise to get your old customers back to you to pay
So
for it,
this is a consistent problem. People fail to recognize the value of retention and upselling or whatever much easier to hold on to customers than to get new customers, yet everybody is focused on new customer acquisition. And that's partly why email is getting devalued there in that. And
I mean,
they
I
may,
understand that the legal industry, where a personal injury lawyer,
well, they
anybody,
don't have,
they don't
there's no
have,
retention there.
hopefully they
They don't
don't.
have repeat customers in
You
theory,
hope, right. But plumbing or air conditioning or all of those
or
sorts of
painting or
painting,
landscape
right.
or any of the home services.
Exactly. All of those. And even restaurants and,
Especially
destination.
restaurants,
What's that? Especially, right.
especially
All those
restaurants.
people. Now, restaurants, we don't see advertising much on digital.
But email marketing can be particularly effective for them.
Yes, I agree.
They just
And
have to
particularly
build the,
effective for a plumber. Gee, I've got some slots this weekend. I know you've been trying to get a hold of me. We'll get, we're going to have a bid to see who gets my slots.
well, speaking of which, a lot of these small businesses, depends on the category, are very, very busy. I mean,
Yes.
they should be lucky to be busy. They just, in one of my surveys, only 18%. I mean, there are other surveys that show much higher numbers, but in one of the surveys that I did, only 18% of, and this was 2024, small businesses were working with an agency. And most people were trying to manage their own marketing in-house, which necessarily, and often that's a part-time person or somebody who's not a professional or somebody who has some affinity for one channel like social media, but not others. And there's just not any discipline going on. And it's a major problem.
For
And
sure.
to the extent that Google and some of these other channels are really gateways to survival for these businesses. I mean, if you're not, unless you have some beloved local business or you're just a genius in, you just do such great work that you get great work word of mouth, you are not going to survive unless you have some marketing efficacy, which inevitably runs through Google in local.
Seems that way to me. And it seems like that's not going to change given they control Android, they control Google Maps, they control YouTube. It's going to stay the same. I don't think any AI, I don't think ChatGPT is going to have a dent in it. I mean, maybe ChatGPT plus Apple will have a dent, but that's still years off, been years off. And we've always talked about it like it was next year, and it's always been next year. So
Well, I mean, I think that the question is, can ChatGPT really overcome, two issues, which is data volume, density, and trust. And unless they devote some meaningful resources to that problem, they're not gonna compete with Google and local. They're not gonna succeed. And what the market needs is alternatives and competition desperately. All right, perhaps we should end this before I sink into more depression about all of the state of things. So, all right, everybody, thank you for watching and listening to this. If you got to the end, thanks to Gather Up for generously sponsoring us. If you would like to sponsor this podcast, send us an email to, I guess you can just do Greg. What is my near media email? Greg Sterling, G
M.
Sterling.
Blumenthal at nearmedia.co.
Okay, that's better. Better. I've got too many email addresses, so I forget what they are. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. Tune in next time. Next episodes will have some special guests, Crystal Tang and others. So she doesn't even know it yet, but she will be coming up as one of our special guests. See you next time.